What's up everybody, it's Matt from the house, and in this video we're going to talk to you about how expensive snowboarding really is compared to a lot of the other activities that you do outside. All right, a lot of people look at snowboarding and they think, wow, I need all this stuff. I need a board, I need bindings, I need boots, I need the whole kit and caboodle, head to toe, and it's gonna cost me a ton of money. How am I gonna be able to afford to do this? And I always thought in the end of the day, yeah, it's kind of an expensive sport, but then one day when I was working in the store, I had a guy come in, buy a bunch of stuff for his kid, and he was buying kid stuff, which is a little bit cheaper than the adult stuff. And it added up to probably around $1,200. And I literally looked at him and I just said, adds up pretty quick, huh? And his response to me was, my kid plays hockey and it cost me $3,000 just to sign him up. So this is nothing. And that was really kind of ticked off something in my head where I was like, wow, snowboarding is actually not that expensive. So that in mind, I actually wanted to kind of go through and kind of look at everything and really figure out exactly how much snowboarding costs in a year compared to some of that other stuff. And what I found out was pretty eye-opening. So I did search around thehouse.com and I wanted to search for an entire kit, kind of from the ground all the way up to your head, to find out exactly how much the gear costs. And I did find some stuff that was pretty inexpensive, and I did kind of pad these prices a little bit, so they actually are a little bit more than the quote-unquote cheapest stuff. But I wanted to look at some of the adult stuff compared to the kids stuff, because the kids stuff is even cheaper. And I found a snowboard for $200. I found bindings, boots, jackets, pants for $100 each. I found gloves for 40 bucks. Layering, on average, you can find them for 80 bucks for the top and the bottom. Helmet, 80 bucks, goggles, 60 bucks, and socks for $15. And this is just kind of like a good average of like the cheap stuff. I actually was curious too, and I found stuff that would fit me specifically, and I was able to find a complete getup of all of that stuff for $620. But again, that's not always gonna be available depending on what we've got in stock. But on average, the cheapest stuff, you can get an entire setup for around 875 bucks. Now it definitely sounds like a lot, and it is, but the cool thing about that is that if you're not growing anymore, and especially if you're an adult or if you are one of those teenage kids that is done growing, once you buy all of that stuff, that pretty much lasts you for your life. Snowboard stuff is pretty resilient, and you actually have to be doing something you're not supposed to be doing to break it. So that stuff is gonna last you for a long time. Now, obviously, outside of all the gear, you're gonna need a pass. You actually have to have a lift ticket every time you go riding. And one thing that you wanna look at is look at how many times you're gonna go riding. It can be worth buying a season pass. Definitely check out our other video about season passes versus lift tickets. It can save you a ton of money in the end. But some of those passes, you're looking at about $500 to $1,000. And again, sounds like a ton of money, but can save you a lot in the long run, and it depends on the pass you buy. In general, you can basically get away for yearly. About $1,500 will get you a full year of snowboarding gear and passes, again, depending on where you're going. Now, outside of that, obviously, once you own all the gear, all you have to do is get that pass every single year. And then obviously, this is all adult stuff. Now, when it comes to the kids stuff, it is cheaper. And if you got a kid that's growing every single year, sometimes you can fudge it a little bit, and you can get a board that's a little bit bigger that's gonna last them a few years. You can get bindings that maybe their foot size is at the bottom of the size range, because bindings do adjust. And if you buy smart, you can actually find a binding that might last them a few years. When it comes to boots, obviously you wanna have boots that fit properly every single year, but you can resell them, no problem. And then obviously when it comes to outerwear too, as long as you buy smart, sometimes you can get stuff that's gonna last them a couple years. And this can actually make it a little bit more economical, and year to year, again, you're not buying a whole new setup. Now, when it comes to hockey stuff, that was obviously kind of the one that kind of brought everything to light. I looked it up, and you're probably looking at about $1,000 of gear if you're looking at basic stuff. You go beyond that, you can spend way more. But to get a good set of basic gear, you're probably gonna spend $1,000, which that right there is already over what we spent on all this adult stuff. A stick costs about $50 to $200, and those things do break a lot. Snowboards don't break as often as hockey sticks do, so that's something that you're gonna have to buy over and over. Every time you break a stick, another $50 to $200 depending on the stick that you want. And that can add up really, really quick no matter what level that you're actually playing at. And then also you need ice time. And for cheap ice time, you're looking at about $1,200. And that's not even having to do with league fees, signing up for this, that, for uniforms, all that other stuff. But you could actually spend somewhere around $3,000 to $8,000 a year outside of the gear. So right off the bat, hockey is crazy more expensive per year than snowboarding. Another thing that I looked at too is figure skating, because that's something that my daughter does. And with figure skating, again, you're looking at about $1,000 in good basic gear. Obviously you can get super, super cheap skates, but if your kid is actually gonna be in some classes, or if you're gonna take classes yourself, you're gonna wanna have a good set of skates. You're not gonna be able to learn to skate at a higher level or even progress to get better if you're getting cheap skates. Some of the skates, it's insane. You can spend $600 plus on just the boot, and then you have to buy the blade that goes on the bottom of it. So figure skates are not cheap. And then again, you're gonna need ice time. And ice time, you can spend $500 to $1,000 just to go on the ice. Sometimes it costs $12 to $15 for an hour of skating. So depending on how much skating you're doing, you can spend a lot of money on that. Then if you're going to get into it and you're gonna take it a little bit more serious, you're gonna need a coach. For figure skating, you really do need to spend money on a coach to actually get better. And again, you do need to spend a lot of time on the ice, and that means a lot of money on the ice too. And you're gonna need outfits, and you're talking another $3,000 to almost $5,000 a year. So again, $5,000 at a beginner level of basically going out and spending time to learn how to figure skate and get better at it. Tons and tons of money. So again, when you compare snowboarding to a lot of these other sports and stuff, even soccer, I looked up about an average of $3,700 a year. You think, oh, I just need cleats and I need a ball. But you actually do need a lot more if you're gonna participate. You have to sign up, you have to pay to use the fields. And if you're gonna be in an organized sport, if your kid's gonna be in somewhat of an organized sport, you do end up spending a ton of money. So snowboarding is actually not that expensive in the long run. It's something that you can learn on your own. Obviously, you can go the route of taking lessons. But the cool thing is once you've learned to ride, snowboarding is one of those progression sports where honestly just riding with other people is actually something that does push you to get better. And again, you can spend tons and tons of money outside of that, but you don't need to. You gotta pay to play. When you do compare a lot of that stuff, snowboarding is actually not that expensive compared to a lot of the other sports. We always have a lot of good closeout stuff at thehouse.com, and you can actually get into it for pretty inexpensive, comparability wise. It's one of those things where you don't have to have the latest and greatest. You don't have to upgrade your equipment every single year. Snowboard gear lasts a long time, and if you're an adult or if you're one of those teenagers that's not growing, you really just have to buy a setup and you've got all your gear for life. But if you got any questions about what we talked about in the video, definitely leave some comments down below. We're on there every single day trying to answer your questions. We want to make sure we get you into some rad gear, but most importantly, we want to make sure that it's going to be stuff that's going to last you a long time and it's going to be economical so you keep you riding for years to come. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, definitely get that notification bell on too so you can find out when all the new videos drop. Grab yourself some gear, get out and ride, because any day of riding is a good day of riding.